They say pleasure feels like a reward, but what if it's only a mask? What if the chocolate, the scroll, the craving, the laugh are just covers, hiding something older and more painful? Think about this. When was the last time you felt complete without reaching for more? Not just pleased, not just amused, but steady, calm, and free from wanting. We live surrounded by pleasure, yet inside we feel empty. Carl Jung warned that the very things we run to for comfort often stop us from healing. Today, you'll see pleasure in a way you never thought about. Picture this. You wake up. You grab your phone. You don't even know why. There's no news, no real joy. But the habit is stronger than hunger. A reel makes you smile for a moment. Then another, and another. Somewhere in that endless feed, the hours disappear, but the ache stays. You set the phone down, maybe grab something sweet or salty. Then guilt arrives. You weren't even hungry. You just needed something. And that something wasn't food. It wasn't dopamine either. It was silence. It was escape. It was a pause in the storm you never put into words. Jung explained it this way. Every person has a shadow, a hidden side we bury inside. Distraction and pleasure are the tools we use to cover it. When you eat without hunger, scroll without curiosity, or want without love, you're not choosing joy. You're choosing numbness. Here's the hard truth. Most pleasure isn't real pleasure. It's a way to avoid yourself. But the cost is heavy. Every false hit of pleasure leaves you craving the real thing even more. And when you don't find it, you feel broken. You're not broken. You're just unaware. Unaware that you've been trained to mistake escape for happiness. Unaware that what feels like joy is often just a signal of something deeper. Let's go further. You're 6 years old. You cry. Nobody listens. So you learn, feeling bad gives me nothing. But when you smile, when you distract, people clap. That reward sticks. You repeat it for years until adulthood, where your pain stays hidden and your pleasures grow louder. Louder than your loneliness, louder than your fears, louder than the child inside you who only wanted to be held. But here's what most don't see. Pleasure remembers. Each time you use it to cover hurt, you teach your body to hate stillness. Quiet feels unbearable. That's why you can't sit alone, why you need music in the shower, why silence feels like punishment. Jung saw this clearly. Pleasure itself isn't bad. The danger is how we use it. The real enemy is the escape it allows. Now, if this speaks to you, if you've ever felt guilt after chasing joy that left you empty, hit subscribe. Not just so this message reaches others, but so you remember you're not the only one. And share below which moment hit you hardest. That's not weakness. That's strength. Here's the trap. Imagine a person lost in a desert, chasing mirages. Each time they reach one, it vanishes. But they keep running, believing the next will be real. That's what false pleasure is. The irony is this: real pleasure, the kind that truly fills you, is often quiet. It doesn't pull, it doesn't distract, it doesn't numb. It grows you. It's in a deep talk. It's in finishing something you feared. It's in waking up and realizing you don't need what once controlled you. But we rarely want that kind, because it's not easy. Yet it's the only kind that matters. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Pleasure is the most beautiful absurdity we've created. It hurts. You cry. Someone says, "Here, take a cookie." Don't cry. Or, "Stop crying. Look, a cartoon is on." That moment stays in you. Not in memory, but in your brain's wiring. It learns pain means punishment. Feelings mean weakness. And the way out is pleasure. So you grow up, and without noticing, you become skilled at distraction. Pleasure becomes your voice. It speaks when you're scared to say, "I'm not okay." It dances when you're too drained to say, "I'm empty." It smiles when inside you want to scream. But here's what no one says. Each time you swap real emotion for stimulation, you drift further from your true self. Carl Jung warned, "When the inner world is ignored, the outside gets louder." And what is louder today than pleasure? The scroll, the buzz, the ping, the binge. They shout so you don't have to hear. But hear what? The ache below it all. The need for meaning. The wish to belong. The wound of not being seen. See, pleasure itself isn't wrong. It's sacred when chosen with care. But it turns toxic when it replaces presence. Think about this. Have you ever felt guilty after pleasure? After one more episode, a text you shouldn't have sent, money spent you didn't need to spend, food eaten when you weren't hungry? That guilt isn't because you sinned. It's because deep down you know you weren't truly fed. You just covered the hunger. And here is where people get Jung wrong. They think shadow work is about being dark or edgy. That's shallow. Shadow work means facing the times you trade truth for relief and saying, "I see it, and I choose honesty over escape." Here's a story. There was someone who kept chasing relationships. They said they were hopelessly romantic. But every time, it ended the same: passion, obsession, break, repeat. When asked why, they said, "I just love love." But that wasn't true. What they loved was distraction. Because when they were alone, silence was too heavy. They never learned to sit with their wounds. So pleasure acted as a bandage until it tore apart. This isn't rare. It's the hidden story of millions. People who mix longing with love, scrolling with joy, numbing with healing. The danger isn't that pleasures exist. The danger is never asking why we need them. Here's the myth we must end. Pleasure isn't healing. Pleasure isn't peace. Pleasure isn't power. Pleasure is a tool. And tools, when misused, turn harmful. Let's flip this. Think about the last time you waited. You didn't send that message, didn't give in to the craving, didn't click. Later you felt proud, calm. Why? Because discipline isn't just control. It's self-trust. And trust is the real high. When you trust yourself, pleasure stops running you. You pick it on purpose, fully, freely. That's when it turns beautiful again. Not a drug, not a cage, but a celebration. Picture this. You walk into a room. No noise, no phone, just you. And instead of panic, you feel at home. Not because you own everything, but because you are enough. That's what Jung called individuation. Becoming whole, not through denial or constant effort, but through joining all parts of yourself. The skill to feel pleasure without making it a cover. The skill to enjoy silence without fear. The skill to sit with yourself and like who you are. That's the goal. But you don't get there by chasing quick highs. You get there by turning down the noise and hearing what was buried. So what does that look like? It's noticing when you grab the phone and asking, "What am I running from?" It's letting yourself feel the loneliness without filling it with sugar, sex, or scrolling. It's choosing the slower joy, the one that needs effort, presence, patience. Because here's the hidden truth. Real pleasure isn't instant. It's earned. The best laugh is with someone you trust. The best meal is after a day of real work. The best bond comes from a talk where you felt seen, not swiped. Now pause for a moment. If this stirred something in you, good. That's how awakening begins. It's not flashy. It's quiet. It's not dramatic. It's steady. And the choice is simple. Will you keep dulling the ache with quick fixes, or will you face yourself fully, bravely, without escape? Jung said our struggles don't come from trauma itself, but from avoiding what that trauma left behind. And when pleasure is used without awareness, it keeps us from ever facing the truth. But now that you see it, what will you choose? Let's go deeper. You've heard the warnings. You've felt the shake of recognition. You've seen the mask of pleasure start to slip. Now comes the part no one wants to face. The truth that doesn't just hurt, it breaks. To truly take back your life from false pleasure, you must admit something hard. You have betrayed yourself. Not once, but slowly, quietly every day. Each time you grabbed the quick fix. Each time you said just 5 more minutes. Each time you avoided the silence because it shouted too loud. Each time you told yourself, "This feels good," when in truth it only made you forget. But listen, this is not shame. It's awakening. You're not weak for doing what felt safe. You're not broken for wanting what numbed the ache. You were surviving. And now you're ready to live. Because once you see the cycle, once you know that most pleasure was never joy, but sedation, you stop chasing the same things. The party doesn't feel the same. The scroll doesn't calm the itch. The hookup leaves the hole unfilled. The sugar doesn't stop the scream. Because the real pain was never boredom. It was losing yourself. Picture this. Your life is a house. Inside waits your wounded child, your hidden truth, your unhealed memory. But instead of walking through the door to face them, you set up an entertainment system outside. Music, lights, snacks, comfort. You throw a party in the yard while your inner child sits alone. That's what unchecked pleasure does. It builds a carnival outside your house so you never step in. But real healing means walking through the silence, opening the door, sitting with that child, and saying, "I'm here now. You can talk." That's the work Jung spoke of. He didn't want people addicted to silence. He wanted them unafraid of it. To see that silence isn't nothing. It's full of all we've avoided. Now comes the final lie to break. You've been told pleasure is the goal, that happiness is feeling good, that the more you indulge, the freer you are. But freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's not needing to. True pleasure isn't the chocolate, the phone, the quick praise. True pleasure is the moment you realize you don't need to run from yourself. You can sit in the quiet and smile. Not because it's empty, but because it's full of presence, truth, and strength. You become someone who doesn't chase the high because peace already lives inside. And people notice. They'll say you've changed. You'll talk slower, pause longer, laugh less often but more deeply. They'll ask, "Why don't you drink as much? Why are you off social media? Why don't you reply right away?" And you'll smile. Because they won't get that you're not avoiding anymore. You're simply present. That's what unsettles people. Because when someone no longer needs pleasure to feel okay, they become powerful, steady, unshaken, impossible to control. Pleasure can't trick them. Ads can't grab them. Addictions lose their hold. Presence returns. And presence is rebellion. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And you are not a dopamine addict. You are not just cravings. You are not only a consumer of feelings. You are a creator of meaning. And meaning is not always pleasant. In truth, it rarely is. It asks a lot. It drains you. It gets in the way. But it's real. And it feeds you in ways pleasure never can. So the next time the craving comes, pause. Not to fight it, not to judge it, but to ask, "What do I really need right now?" That one question can change your life because it breaks the cycle. It puts the pen back in your hand. It reminds you that you are not your hunger. You are the one who decides how to answer it. So here's the closing thought. You will never see pleasure the same again. Not because it's bad, but because now you see it for what it is. You'll still laugh, still love, still enjoy the sweet parts of life, but you'll do it with awareness. And that awareness will guard you from giving up your peace for short comfort. It will make your joy pure, your connections clearer, your habits stronger, and your silence priceless. Because the pleasure you no longer need to chase is the only kind worth having.